paper, and the first shape that I am going to try to tear is a square. So here I have a piece of scrap paper and I'm going to attempt to tear a square. So I'm going to hold my paper with two fingers close to each other and I'm just going to tear in a line. And if I need to move my fingers further down the paper as I go, as I'm tearing, then that might help me control the way in which I'm tearing. Pretty good torn line there. So now I'm going to try to turn my paper and tear another line. And this time it might be a little bit harder because paper has a grain, which means that it goes in one direction. So this was a nice straight line because I was tearing with the grain. And this one is not quite so straight because I was tearing against the grain. Now I'm going to tear again. And pretty good. We have a square. That's a pretty good torn square. I like that one. So that's a good torn square. Next, we're going to try a triangle. So I'm going to choose a piece of paper. And one thing that you can do with your paper if you're having a hard time tearing it if you want it to be very straight when you tear, is you can fold the paper so that when you tear it, it has kind of a place to tear. So I might try folding this one. I think I'm gonna fold here and I'm gonna crease really, really well. And then I'm gonna flip it back and fold it over the other way and crease really, really well. Okay. And then I'm gonna try tearing. See if I can stay on my line, kind of. The cool thing about torn shapes is that they don't have to be perfect, which is kind of the nice thing about tearing paper. You never have to have like a perfect shape. If you want perfect shapes, you want to use scissors, but for tearing, it's kind of nice because it gives you a not so perfect shape. I'm going to try folding this one more time and see if I can get this edge to be a little bit straighter. Let's see. Maybe if I guide my fingers better. Oh, a little bit. See how it kind of tore on the line right there? That's because I folded it. So I'm starting to get a triangle shape. So that's a pretty good torn paper triangle shape. I'm going to try another one. This time we're going to try a circle, which might be kind of hard, but we'll see how we do. So a circle, I'm going to start with a smaller piece of paper, and I think what I'm going to do is try and tear it into a square first so that a circle kind of fits inside of a square. And then I'm going to start tearing off the corners to start making this square piece of paper kind of round. See how my fingers are so close together? If you have your fingers close together, you'll be able to control the tear more. If you have your fingers far apart, the tear is going to kind of go wherever it wants to. So now I'm going to tear off any extra pieces. We're starting to create a circle here. Let's see. Maybe I can kind of tear going around the edge. And that's a pretty good circle for tearing. That would make a really nice torn paper sun, I think. So there's a circle. Of course, you can also tear a rectangle similar to the way that you tore a square. So I'm going to use this piece and I'm going to try and tear a rectangle. When I'm going with the grain, I can tell it's tearing really nice and straight. And then let's make it a rectangle. There we go. So now I have a rectangle, a triangle, a square. I'm going to keep these little scrap pieces too because I might need them when I'm rearranging my shapes later on. Last type of shape that we're going to try to tear is an organic shape. And an organic shape is awesome when you're tearing paper because the torn paper is already kind of making this nice organic line. And organic shapes are shapes that don't have a specific name. So they're like blobby shapes or shapes that we see in nature. So we're going to do an organic shape. Here I have another piece of scrap paper. I'm just going to tear a piece off of it. And I'm going to try tearing an interesting organic shape. Organic shapes, I think, are probably the most fun to tear just because they lend themselves so nicely to tearing paper. See, this is not a shape that I recognize. This is not a triangle or a circle or a square or a rectangle. This is an organic shape. So now I have an organic shape, torn paper. Once we tear our paper, we can then have some fun arranging the paper. So I'm going to get all of my shapes that I had, and I'm going to see what I can create with torn paper and just by arranging the pieces. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different shapes. And now I want to see what kind of like picture could I make if I was going to arrange these into a picture. This triangle shape kind of reminds me of a mountain. So maybe I will use that. Maybe this could be the ground. If I bring it down a little bit, I feel like this could be like a building on top of the ground. I think I need some more torn pieces. So here's where my scraps are going to come in handy. I'm going to use my scraps and I'm going to tear off more pieces. So now I have ground, though it's blue, so it kind of reminds me of water. Maybe this could be a house on the ground. I have this great orange circle, so I know that for sure that that's going to be the sun. And maybe I can use this organic shape as a cloud. So I arranged a picture, but now I want to try something else. So this is what's fun about arranging. You can, while you're doing arranging with shapes, you can take it apart and you can do it again, and you can practice arranging your shapes in many different ways. So maybe I want to focus more on a house this time. So maybe I will use my square and my rectangle. Maybe I'll build a tall house. And my triangle on top, and then the sun. So I was thinking about also making some kind of animal. Maybe I could make an animal with a body and a head and legs. I need my scraps again. And my animal definitely needs a tail. I have this really cool scrap from when I tore my circle, so that could be the tail of the animal. So there's lots of really cool things that you could create. So I just want you to explore how you can use these different torn shapes and how you would maybe arrange them into a picture.